Welcome, everyone. I am absolutely thrilled you're here today. Let's just jump right in. For this explainer, I really want you to treat our time together as an intimate, live relationship coaching session. Seriously, wherever you are right now, just mentally pull up a seat on the counseling couch with me. Whether you're single and braving the dating world, or you've been married for decades, we all carry a little relational baggage, right? Well, today we're doing some real healing work. Our big goal here is to build something called emotional safety. That's basically a state where both partners feel completely secure to be vulnerable, like 100% themselves, without any fear of punishment or rejection. We're looking at this amazing framework designed to totally transform the vibe of how we relate to each other. We're moving out of a tense, punishing environment and stepping into a place of profound healing. We are literally going to learn how to move from the courtroom to the sanctuary.
Okay, let's dive into this with a really critical intake question. And I want you to answer this honestly in your own head. What voice dominates your relationship? Is it the accuser or is it the advocate? Because look, in any partnership, there's this internal and external dialogue constantly running in the background. The accuser's voice, that's the scorekeeper. It zeroes in on every flaw, every tiny misstep, every forgotten promise. It's like being stuck on this exhausting treadmill of relational debt where you can never, ever pay off your past mistakes. You just keep running, sweating it out, and getting absolutely nowhere. But then you have the advocate. That's the voice that defends, supports, and actually tries to understand. So, if we want to build lasting intimacy, we've got to figure out which of these voices is currently sitting at the head of the table in your life.
Now, the source material for our session today comes from something playfully called the Magic ATM Lovers Conclave. I know it sounds a little quirky, but the concept is just profound. It's built entirely around one core theme, and that's grace. Think about two hands reaching across a divide, offering unconditional support. That perfectly visualizes what we're talking about here. Think of grace in your relationship kind of like a magic ATM. In a healthy dynamic, trust isn't just this rigid transactional exchange where you only get what you perfectly earn. No way. True emotional connection happens when two people actively choose to reach across that divide and withdraw unmerited favor for each other, even when their relational account feels completely overdrawn. You're offering favor that hasn't necessarily been earned. And honestly, that is the absolute bedrock of emotional safety.
To really grasp how this works, let's talk about the patterns of trust we build. Try to picture two totally different mental diagrams for a second. On one side, we have the courtroom. Man, imagine the sheer heavy exhaustion of living in a courtroom. You are constantly on trial. Every little disagreement turns into a full-blown prosecution, and past failures, they're continually dragged out as evidence against you. It creates this awful, tense, downward spiral of defensiveness that just drains the life right out of a relationship. Okay, now take a breath and picture the alternative, the sanctuary. A sanctuary is a refuge. It's a warm, safe environment defined entirely by mercy and grace. And that creates an upward cycle of mutual trust. When your relationship is a sanctuary, you can finally drop your defenses. You aren't being cross-examined, you're being cared for. And that beautiful shift is exactly what we're working toward today.
But to build that sanctuary, we have to diagnose the sickness that builds the courtroom in the first place, right? As a counselor, I can tell you straight up that the absolute #1 enemy of intimacy is condemnation. Condemnation is so incredibly toxic because it doesn't just deal with the problem right in front of you, it resurrects forgiven sins and past mistakes, and it literally weaponizes them. Just recently in my practice, I worked with a couple. We'll call them Mark and Sarah. Well, Mark made a financial mistake like 5 years ago, and Sarah was resurrecting it in literally every single argument they had, no matter what they were actually fighting about. That right there is condemnation in action. It traps both partners in this endless cycle of guilt and shame. It tells you the past is never actually in the past, which makes genuine vulnerability completely impossible.
I want you to think about the last argument you had. Go ahead, really picture it. Did you use phrases like, "You always do this," "You never listen to me," or "If only you had done what I asked"? In my practice, these are the exact phrases I hear from clients right when a conflict is escalating out of control. These absolute black and white terms leave the other person with zero room to breathe and no room to grow. So what we need to practice instead is validation. That simply means acknowledging your partner's feelings and perspective as real and legitimate, even if you totally disagree with them. Once you validate, you can replace all that heavy criticism with clear, actionable requests for your needs. So instead of shouting, "You never help out around here," you validate the stress of their long day and ask, "Hey, could you please take care of the dishes tonight?" That simple little shift stops the character attacks and pulls you entirely out of that exhausting courtroom dynamic.
Now, what's really interesting about this next point is that to truly break this cycle, we have to experience a definitive paradigm shift.
The source material for this explainer roots this whole concept in a final legal verdict. It says, "There is therefore now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus." Just think about the profound weight of that statement from Romans 8:1. For believers, this is the ultimate breakthrough. It means the highest judge has already struck the gavel and formally closed those courtroom doors forever. If the verdict of heaven over your life is no condemnation, then dragging your partner or dragging yourself back into some makeshift relational courtroom isn't just exhausting, it's actually a rejection of the grace you've already been freely given.
The absolute key here is how we apply this truth on a random Tuesday. This definitive verdict has to become the actual, breathing atmosphere of your relationship. You've got to start relating to each other not as perfect people who never mess up, because let's be real, those don't exist, but as pardoned people. What does it actually mean to be a pardoned person? It means you are free to fail, you're free to confess your shortcomings, and you are free to receive grace. Actively treating each other as pardoned people builds this deeply rooted pattern of trust that entirely replaces the paralyzing fear of rejection. Now, just to be super clear, grace doesn't mean we just ignore bad behavior or sweep genuine hurt under the rug. Not at all. It simply means we strip away the power of those mistakes to define our identity and divide our partnership.
All right, let's transition into the actionable homework phase of our session, and we're starting with our singles. You know, often the harshest courtroom we ever face is the one right inside our own heads. Shame can be so deeply rooted, especially if you've been through repeated relational failures. If you find yourself constantly condemning yourself, here is your step-by-step action plan. And please, think of this not just as a quick to-do list, but as crucial emotional surgery to remove that deep-seated shame before entering a new relationship. Step 1. Physically write down a past relational failure that haunts you. Step 2. Take a pen and literally cross it out. Step 3. Write the verdict of Romans 8:1 right over it. No condemnation. And finally, Step 4. Pray and actively release yourself from that shame. Say it out loud. I release myself from the shame and choose to walk in grace. Because listen, you cannot build a sanctuary with someone else until you've built one in your own mind.
Now, if you are sitting next to your partner right now, I really want you to listen closely. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how to de-escalate arguments before they cause long-term relationship damage. If there's a past hurt that just keeps getting resurrected, you need to have a formal courtroom closing conversation. Here is the exact script. First, the offended spouse states clearly and specifically, I choose to close the case on and name the exact issue. Second, you say, you are forgiven and I will not bring it up as a weapon. Third, the other partner doesn't argue, they don't deflect or justify, they simply reply, I receive your grace, thank you. Finally, step 4, intentionally speak words of affirmation over each other. This stops the cycle of damage with clinical precision and it instantly rebuilds trust. It is a total game changer.
To make all of this really stick, we have to adopt some new daily habits. I want to read a declaration over you right now, and I want you to imagine this becoming the permanent, unshakable reality of your home. Ready? The verdict of heaven over us is no condemnation. We refuse the voices of accusation and shame. Our relationship is a safe house of grace. Wow. Now, to turn that beautiful declaration into your actual reality, I want you to implement 3 daily habits that foster lasting intimacy. Habit 1. Have a daily check-in specifically designed just to validate each other's feelings without trying to fix them. Habit 2. Commit to catching and stopping those always and never statements mid-sentence before they can do any damage. And habit 3. Actively offer one piece of unmerited favor each day. Just do something completely unprompted to serve your partner simply because you love them.
So, as we wrap up our coaching session today, I want to leave you with one final profound question to just sort of chew on. What does it actually feel like to be in a relationship where you know there is truly no condemnation? Take a second and really feel that. Imagine the weight completely lifting off your shoulders. Imagine the total emotional safety of knowing you are fully seen, flaws and the whole shebang, and entirely loved anyway. That is the sanctuary. It is completely possible, and the tools we covered in this explainer today are your clinical blueprint to get there. So, here's my challenge to you right now. Close those courtroom doors today. Start extending unmerited favor. Let go of the shame, and just watch how your relationship transforms. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I encourage you, start doing that healing work right now.